Welcome to Atmosphere Online. My name is Georgia and it's my pleasure to be your host for today's session, which is the fourth and final Hangout on Air in this series. The session today focuses on insurance. As we'll see, data visualization is more important to this industry now than ever before, so we're really excited that you've taken the time today to join us. The session is going to run for about 20 minutes. Should you have any questions about what you see in the Hangout, please do feel free to submit them via the Google form to the right-hand side of your browser. You might also wish to enlarge your screen by clicking on the full screen icon. So that brings us to our speaker today. Ed Knott is Google's industry lead for insurance in Australia. He'll be speaking in depth about the capabilities of Maps for Business in this sector. Ed, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks, Georgia, and hi, everyone. Now, in today's presentation, we're going to talk about Google's geospatial technologies, that's Google Maps and Earth, and how they can be leveraged within the insurance industry to create greater visibility of your risks, your risk-based data, and automate pricing and claims. Let me just transfer to my slide deck. Now, in terms of an agenda, we're going to go through a couple of trends first up. We're then going to go through a quick overview of the platform, why we think it's relevant then in the insurance sector, and we're going to go through a couple of customer case studies. Now, firstly, we're going to talk about a couple of consumer trends that are changing our thinking in the enterprise. The first one is the proliferation of Google Maps. In the consumer space, Google Maps has had a profound influence on the way we conduct our lives. We use it as a tool to navigate from A to B, where we factor in traffic on the route. Our maps are being used within social applications to locate our friends and push them relevant information based on their position. And we use Street View to visualize places before we visit them. At Google Enterprise, we're asking our customers to imagine how they could transform their workplace by using these same tools. And to bring some context to the previous slide, here's some stats on our current usage. We have over 1 billion active monthly users, and that's both on Maps and Earth. We have over 200 million monthly active mobile users, and these numbers are increasing quite dramatically with a number of the car manufacturers now actually leveraging that through the actual navigation piece as well. That actually equates to 10+ billion miles driven each year, and that's both assets tracked on a map and through navigation. Now, when we deploy software, there's a major focus on usability. If the end user doesn't find that the tool is intuitive or easy to use, it can be very difficult to drive adoption. With Google Maps, there's enormous consumer adoption, which essentially means geoliteracy for all. Everyone knows how to open a map, to pan and zoom and search for relevant information. And we think that's a major consideration when you look at the cost of training and indeed the adoption rate. The second trend relates to the dramatic shift in the adoption of new technologies within the consumer space compared to the enterprise. It used to be that you came to work to get your hands on the best technology, but the trend has completely shifted, and in many cases we now have better technologies at home and on our mobiles, and we often have to leave those technologies at the door when we actually come to the office. At Google Enterprise, we live by the mantra, work the way you live, and we believe you can make dramatic changes in your organization through the use of these consumer-based technologies. Now, before we jump into the insurance use cases, I wanted to provide a quick overview of the platform and what we're actually discussing. Now, the use cases that we're going to discuss shortly are all predicated on the ability to leverage a central store to visualize and publish your data. So what does it look like? Well, it all really starts with a map. And that map could be a Maps API 2D client or an Earth Pro 3D client. It could include Street View imagery or 3D modeling. You may have third-party data, which is peril-related data, could be cat modeling or customer demographics that you want to add. You may want to include your data around policies or claims or risk models. You might have imagery that you want to include that could be claims locations, flood extents, or it could have custom aerial imagery. Of course, then you have assets, and these are your mobile assets. These are intermediaries, claims agents, and assistance vehicles. And effectively, the platform provides the building blocks to manage and visualize your data. Now, in terms of the use cases, many things we could discuss today, but given the time, we're just going to go through 4. So we have the online quotes we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about streamlined claims, mobile and telematics, and risk and analytics. So firstly, online quotes. So personalization is becoming increasingly important in the insurance industry. The first use case talks to the trend and the time it takes to complete an online quote. The address function is obviously a key factor in pricing, but it's often a multi-step process that requires each element of your address to be completed individually. Now, through the use of autocomplete functionality and predictive analysis, we believe you can dramatically reduce the time it takes to complete this task. Now, on the personalization front, in addition to geocoding your property, this process can provide the end user with the ability to visualize their actual property and either validate or correct their location. Now, through the use of this technology, we believe you can significantly reduce the number of errors that occur during the input process, create a far richer user experience for your customers, and most importantly, increase conversions. The second one we're going to talk today about is streamlined claims, and there's going to be two components that I want to talk through in the claims space. The first component speaks to one of the consumer trends that we discussed earlier, which is geoliteracy, and in addition to that, the proliferation of smartphones. Now, we're talking about the ability to leverage the platform to develop mobile applications that capture and store more data at the point of a claim. This could be a motor claim where a customer is able to capture photos of the scene and geocode their exact location. Now, in addition to this, you could use the tool to validate their location and actually provide directions to the nearest authorized service center. Again, the focus here is on automation, leveraging and storing this information and providing next steps, but without direct contact with your call center. Now, the storage of this data can also be leveraged for underwriting purposes, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Now, the second component talks about the ability to leverage the platform to visualize and publish data where it's needed most. And by this, we're talking about empowering your employees with greater insights. By using Street View or Google Earth, your claims agents have access to far greater contextual information about the location of a claim and the circumstances surrounding it. By providing access to this type of information in a programmatic way, you can have a far richer conversation with your customers. Now, in this scenario, we're talking about claims, but this could just as easily apply to pricing discussions, where a call center staff member, for example, could have the ability to visualize customers' property and then actually validate the structure of that building. We've seen that when you empower your employees with Google Maps platform, you create positive and insightful engagement with your customers. In the third case study, we're going to talk about two capabilities: effective workforce management and telematics, which is rapidly redefining the model for insurance in many parts of the globe. Now, firstly, I'll address mobile workforce management. In the insurance industry, brokers and intermediaries, as claims agents or risk assessors, are commonplace, but we often don't have a good way of confirming the location of these assets. Secondly, when we communicate with the broader network, we often don't have a programmatic way of collecting data and collaborating with these intermediaries. Now, Google has built an application called that can assist with both of these capabilities. The application is available across the Android and iOS platforms, and once deployed, it will allow you to easily visualize and allocate jobs to the source and then collaborate with them via, for example, video conference or messaging. But you can also share documents and complete forms and capture photos. Ultimately, this offering will create greater visibility of your assets. It will drive efficiency in the way that you manage your workforce, and most importantly, change the relationship you have with your customers. Now we'll talk about telematics, which, as I said earlier, is quickly emerging as a mainstream model for insurance. Now, this is especially true in Europe, where legislation is driving change around current pricing practices. The model for this type of capability is still evolving, but one way of generating greater insights is through a tool that you have with you every day, and that's your mobile phone. Now, through the use of Google's mapping platform, distance matrix, and asset tracking capabilities, customers can leverage their phone to generate greater insights into both their usage pattern and their risk profile. Now, this isn't a model for everybody, but we're quickly seeing customers adopt this type of model in search of a more personalized insurance premium. Now, turning to a customer case study, Allianz Global Assist is a really good example of both mobile workforce management and effective customer service. Now, Allianz has helped millions of people with emergency medical and roadside assistance. Every day, their call centres receive hundreds of calls from customers in distress who need immediate attention. And Allianz uses Google's mapping platform to pinpoint the location of customers and dispatch the closest roadside assistance vehicle. In addition to mapping, distance analysis, and autocomplete functionality, they also utilise Street View to visually identify the location of their customers. This has resulted in improved customer interactions, faster results, and greater accuracy. Lastly, we'll talk about risk and analytics. And I guess my key message is set your data free. When we're analysing and rating risk, we're dealing with multiple data sets that often reside in disparate silos, often accessible to only a subset of your employees. In addition, it's difficult to see the whole picture without the context of multiple complementary data sets. The Google platform allows you to create and publish a single picture of the customer and associated risks. You can use it to store and analyze peril-related imagery, or visualize accumulation and embargo zones. And through the Uses platform, you can more precisely geocode locations and visualize your customer's property online. Now, outside of risk, you could also leverage the same platform to track and visualize, for example, sales performance by region or postcode. You could use it to visualize the results of your latest marketing campaign, or use it for brand and disaster management to publish the locations of claim centers, emergency services, or provide weather updates. Now, a good example of a company doing this well is AXA. AXA Group serves more than 100 million clients globally. They leverage our platform to identify risk factors during the rating process, such as flood, fire, and crime. And they also leverage Street View and satellite imagery to visualize the associated risk for specific locations, which provides them with far greater insights at the point of underwriting. Through the use of the platform, AXA have been able to assess risk with greater accuracy. And by publishing the data to a broader set of employees, they have enhanced their customer engagement and empowered their staff to respond more effectively to customer inquiries. Now, that's the end of my presentation. I'll pass you back to Georgia.
Thanks very much for that, Ed. That was a great presentation. Ed, I've got a couple of questions for you if you'll take them. Just around the subject. So can you tell us a little bit about questions that you typically hear from C-level executives in insurance?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's definitely two common themes there. I mean, clearly everybody wants to be able to better understand their risks and have greater visibility of that. But also, it's all about cost. And so obviously they want to make sure that the cost is as low as possible, and that really reflects on reinsurance. And so, I mean, all the things that we've just been talking about, being able to leverage a platform to be able to understand your risk better and multiple data sets. And once you understand that better, then you're able to lower your cost ultimately by lowering reinsurance.
Okay. So if you were to place a bet on any new technologies that you would think are going to transform the insurance sector in coming years, where would you place your bet?
I think there's lots and lots of interesting things happening in this particular sector. There's new competitors coming into the market. There's a major focus on personalization, which is really changing the game. But I have to say it's telematics. I mean, one of the things that we just talked about now. I mean, it's definitely moving faster forward in Europe at the moment. And that's obviously driven by legislation. But it's really changing dramatically the way that we actually price our premiums at the moment. So when telematics comes on board, it's going to be something that people are really looking for a much more personalized service. And I think that's not too far away at all in this market.
Okay. Interesting. So if you were to talk about one application of Google's geotechnologies in insurance that you find most compelling, what study would come to mind for you?
Oh, it's difficult to pinpoint one, I would say. I mean, there's a number of things that I've seen recently that I think are very compelling. I think there's a bit of a trend at the moment where people are starting to do more predictive analysis when they're rating their risk. Historically, we've used a lot of these historical data points actually in data sets to be able to work through premiums, but we're starting to see a number of parties out there now driving analytical tools that help you to predict what's going to happen in the future. So rather than analyzing historical flood data that we have, we're actually trying to now predict what will happen in the next flood. So I think I've seen a number of fantastic case studies of ISVs working on that particular piece, and it's very exciting.
Great. Ed, thanks very much for joining us today. That's all we've got time for. That brings our session to a close. Thanks for taking the time to join us. If you'd like to discuss any of the content that you've seen today, or to speak with a representative of Google, please get in touch with us via our Maps Earth website. The domain for that is www.google.com/enterprise/Maps Earth. You might also want to take some time before you head off just to complete the feedback survey. You can access that via the green button that you'll see at the top of your browser window. Thanks everyone. Thank you very much everyone for joining us, and have a great rest of your day. See you later.